In October of 2014, a livestock trailer pulled off a county road in Delaware County, Oklahoma, after a 14-hour drive from South Dakota. Inside were 38 bison from Badlands National Park. Within weeks, 10 more would arrive from Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. The animals walked out onto a fenced section of Cherokee Nation land near the community of Kenwood, and for the first time in more than a century, bison stood on Cherokee soil. This was not a token gesture. It was the opening move in something the United States government had spent the 1800s trying to make impossible. What nobody knew at the time was that this small herd would become the seed of one of the most quietly significant ecological recoveries in modern North American history. To understand what happened in Oklahoma, you have to understand what was nearly erased. 1889, the American plains. The official count of wild bison in North America had collapsed to 541 animals. A century earlier, conservative estimates placed the population somewhere between 30 and 60 million. Some scientific estimates push the upper figure as high as 75 million. Either way, the destruction that occurred between those two numbers is one of the fastest large mammal collapses ever documented on any continent. The collapse was not accidental. It was policy. In 1873, Columbus Delano, the United States Secretary of the Interior, put it in writing. He stated that he would not seriously regret the total disappearance of the buffalo from the western plains because of the effect that disappearance would have on what he called the Indians. The buffalo, in other words, was a resource the federal government wanted destroyed, not for hides, not for sport, for control. Plains nations depended on the animal for more than 150 separate uses: food, shelter, tools, clothing, ceremony. Cut the buffalo and you cut the nation. The United States Army understood this clearly and acted on it. By 1883, bison were functionally extinct in the wild. A year later, in 1884, the population estimate dropped to roughly 325 animals. The most consequential land mammal on the continent was reduced to fewer animals than fit inside a single modern feedlot, and the human cost ran parallel. Plains nations were forced onto reservations, their economic base destroyed alongside the animal that had defined it. That is the world the Cherokee bison were being released back into. Not an empty landscape, but a landscape with 125 years of absence stitched into it. And here is the detail that most accounts skip over. The absence was so complete that the language itself began to forget. Among the Yuchi people of Oklahoma, the traditional buffalo dance survived. The song survived. But when Richard Grounds, executive director of the Yuchi Language Project, began working with tribal elders to document the song, they noticed something strange. The Yuchi word for buffalo does not appear in it. The elders had trouble remembering the word at all. They had never seen the animal, neither had their parents, neither had their grandparents. As Grounds put it, nobody who wrote that song could have imagined the animals would be slaughtered by the millions. That is what cultural erasure looks like when it works. Not a missing artifact, a missing word. So when those bison stepped off the trailer in Delaware County, Oklahoma in 2014, the question was never just about ecology. It was about whether something that had been deliberately and systematically destroyed could actually be rebuilt. The answer would come from an organization most Americans have never heard of. April 1992, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Representatives from 17 tribal nations met to form what they called the Intertribal Bison Cooperative. The premise was straightforward. Federal conservation programs had restored bison numbers through zoos and federal parks, but the animal remained largely absent from the lands of the people whose cultures had been built around it. The cooperative existed to change that. By September of that same year, the organization was formally incorporated in Colorado and headquartered in Rapid City, South Dakota. For years, the work was slow. Funding was thin. Federal money to support the program runs at roughly $1.8 million annually, which is a fraction of what comparable federal wildlife programs receive. But here is the detail that everyone missed at the time. The cooperative was building something that did not depend on federal funding to scale. It was building a network. By 2010, the cooperative reorganized into a federally chartered Indian organization under the Indian Reorganization Act, now known as the Intertribal Buffalo Council. By the time the Cherokee Nation received its first herd in 2014, the council had grown into a coordinating body capable of moving bison from federal parks to tribal lands at scale. Today, that council includes 83 tribal nations across 20 states. Together, they manage roughly 20,000 bison on more than 1 million acres of tribally controlled land. Read that again, 1 million acres. But this wasn't just about the Cherokee anymore. By 2022, the Cherokee herd in Delaware County had grown from its original size to roughly 350 head. In the first week of November of that year, an additional 165 bison arrived from outside the nation to expand the herd size and genetic diversity. The Cherokee Nation Natural Resources Department now manages roughly 22,000 acres of tribally owned land in northeast Oklahoma, with the Bison Ranch occupying about 1,000 of those acres near Kenwood. The Quapaw Nation, also in Oklahoma, had quietly started its own bison program back in 2010. By the mid-2020s, the Quapaw herd numbered around 200 head, alongside a cattle herd of roughly 1,300. In 2017, the Quapaw Nation opened a meat processing plant near their headquarters in Miami, Oklahoma, which is the kind of number that makes accountants cry when you compare it to typical tribal economic development timelines. Most tribal economic projects of that scale require a decade of grants and consultants. The Quapaw built it inside 7 years of starting the herd. In 2022, the Osage Nation received 6 bison in northeast Oklahoma from a place that most Americans would never associate with bison recovery, the Bronx Zoo in New York City. The transfer carried a strange weight because it was not the first time it had happened. In 1907, the Bronx Zoo sent 15 bison by train to the foothills of southern Oklahoma to help preserve the species from extinction. Those animals seeded the early recovery of bison in the state. The 2022 transfer to the Osage Nation came 115 years after the original transfer. It bridged 2 centuries of conservation work into the same northeast Oklahoma corridor. In March of 2023, the Yuchi tribe received 5 bison from Denver Mountain Park. For the Yuchi people, it was the first time in nearly 2 centuries that members of the tribe would interact directly with the animal. 200 years. The same gap that had emptied the word out of the dance song was, in that moment, finally beginning to close. And every one of these transfers had something attached to it that conventional conservation programs almost never produce: a genetic anomaly. On Quapaw Nation land in northeast Oklahoma, researchers identified a genetically pure white bison. The animal's odds of existing are approximately 1 in 10 million. According to the National Park Service, a white bison is among the most sacred animals on Earth to many American Indian nations. The reverence traces back to the story of the white buffalo calf woman, who arrived in a time of famine and promised in the tradition to restore harmony. That a white bison would appear on tribal land during the largest active restoration effort in the species' history is not something Western conservation frameworks know how to categorize. If you're finding this story worth your time, subscribe to the channel. We cover overlooked stories from American conservation and the ecological histories nobody bothers to tell every week. Alright, so here's where things get genuinely interesting from an ecological standpoint. The bison were not just symbolic. They were structurally rewriting the prairie. When bison hooves strike the soil, they do something cattle hooves do not do as efficiently. They press the seeds of native grasses into the ground at the depth required for germination. Native grass seeds also catch in bison fur and disperse across the range as the animals move. The grazing pattern of bison, which favors certain grasses over others and rotates across large areas, opens up space for wildflowers, native plants, insects, and amphibians that struggle in landscapes grazed by livestock alone. Their manure functions as natural fertilizer at a scale and chemical composition that supports the specific soil microbial communities of the Great Plains. The land does not just hold bison. The land was shaped by bison over tens of thousands of years, and in their absence, the prairie ecosystem had been quietly degrading in ways most rangeland science treated as normal. Place the animal back, and the system begins to repair itself. Cherokee Nation Natural Resource Director G.V. Gulager described what was happening on the Cherokee land in plain terms. The bison were bringing back heritage, bringing back the symbolic connection between the Native American and the buffalo, and bringing back the land's original ecological function in the same motion. One animal. 3 layers of recovery happening simultaneously. And this is where the story shifted from a tribal-led effort into something the federal government could no longer ignore. March 3, 2023. Deb Haaland, the first Native American to serve as Secretary of the Interior in United States history, signed Secretary's Order 3410. The order directed every bureau within the Department of the Interior to enhance efforts to restore wild and healthy populations of American bison and the prairie grasslands they depend on. Attached to the order was a commitment of more than $25 million from the Inflation Reduction Act to support bison conservation work, including transfers to tribal nations and co-stewardship agreements. Haaland described the bison as inextricably intertwined with indigenous culture, grassland ecology, and American history. She acknowledged that the broader recovery of bison over the past 130 years counts as a conservation success, while noting that significant work remained. Critics inside the tribal restoration movement pointed out fairly that the funding still fell short of the scale required. Jason Baldes, who serves as the National Wildlife Federation's Tribal Buffalo Senior Program Manager and is a member of the Eastern Shoshone tribe, made that point directly. The federal commitment, while historic, did not meet the actual scale of need across tribal grasslands. In other words, yes, the money was real. No, it was not nearly enough. And yet the work kept moving. The bison kept moving with it. In 2024 alone, 543 bison were transferred from preserves managed by the Nature Conservancy to tribal nations across 10 states, including Oklahoma, Texas, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Washington. Since 2020, more than 2,300 bison have been returned to indigenous communities. In July of 2024, the Intertribal Buffalo Council, Native Americans in Philanthropy, the Nature Conservancy, and the World Wildlife Fund formed the Tribal Buffalo Lifeways Collaboration, a coalition specifically designed to coordinate further returns. By 2025, nearly 600 additional buffalo had been transferred to ancestral grazing lands. The Choctaw Nation in Oklahoma announced its own restoration effort, with bison to roam freely across a 10,000-acre nature preserve. The animal that the United States government deliberately drove to the edge of extinction is now being deliberately restored by the descendants of the people that policy was designed to break. And the rebuild is happening fastest in the same state where it was once a near impossibility. Oklahoma was Indian Territory before it was a state. It became the destination at the end of the Trail of Tears, the dumping ground for forced removals from the southeast. The land was supposed to be a holding pen. Instead, it has become the geographic core of one of the most significant indigenous-led conservation movements in modern North American history. Troy Heinert, the executive director of the Intertribal Buffalo Council and a member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe, described what the work actually means in his own words. The buffalo, he said, has just as long a connection to indigenous people as those people have to the buffalo. The animal is not a number or a commodity. The work is returning a relative to its rightful place. Jason Baldes put it another way. It is in the DNA, he said, to have the animal around again. It is like bringing home a long-lost relative. 125 years after the federal policy that nearly destroyed both the animal and the cultures built around it, a quiet network of tribal nations, federal partners, and conservation organizations is undoing it. Not symbolically, structurally, on the ground, in the soil, in the language. In 2023, when the 5 yuchi bison arrived from Denver, an elder in the community is reported to have stood near the pasture and listened. The buffalo dance song that had outlived its own subject was, for the first time in nearly 2 centuries, being sung in the actual presence of the animal it had always been about. The word that had nearly fallen out of the language was finally meeting the thing it had originally named. That is what the small herd in Delaware County, Oklahoma, set in motion in October of 2014. Not a conservation milestone, a relative coming home.